everyone, welcome to the Anchor of the Week. My name is Courtney.
And I'm Zach. We are an initiative of Hope and Anchor Community Church in London.
Each week we'll discuss different topics relevant to faith and Christianity in today's culture.
We are here to build a space for the church to share our experiences and challenge one another to grow in living a life like Jesus.
So team, welcome to another episode on the podcast.
Yes, hello everybody. It's a pleasure to see you, to be with you.
It is, yes. So we are on Zoom today, and we have a special guest. If you are watching on YouTube, you have noticed Aaron Vogeler, actually. Is that how you say your last name?
That's right.
Yes, brilliant.
Did I have to coach him a little bit before we started this? Yes, yeah, but you know what? We got there.
And I still got it wrong. So, we have Aaron on. Great to have you, mate. Thank you for joining us all the way from the States.
Yep.
Yeah, Aaron is part of the military back over there. Do you want to give us just an intro, your name? Obviously, we've gone through your name and surname, but just a little background check for us. My
name's Aaron Vogeler. I'm an officer in the United States Air Force, and my main job is an aircraft maintenance officer. So I oversee the aircraft maintenance and management of all kinds of different airframes throughout my career. And I've been in for about 13 years, and it's been an awesome journey so far. And pleased to be here to kind of talk about a little bit about what freedom means to me.
Yeah, brilliant, mate. Lovely to have you. Just a little bit more on that. We'll kind of dive straight in. I mean, what made you want to join the military, starters? Yeah,
honestly, joining the Air Force to me was completely selfish and personal.
Right.
I saw a career goal that I had in mind, and way back then I wanted to be a commercial airline pilot. This was just after 9/11, which wasn't a great time in the aerospace industry, but 9/11, obviously, the attack on the World Trade Center and the Pentagon here in the U.S. It's a big moment in history. But back then, I wanted to be a commercial airline pilot, so I was trying to find the best way for me to get to that goal. And I saw the Air Force was a great opportunity to do that, to fly with them, to be a pilot. They pay for the time and the training, because obviously airline training is extremely expensive. I kind of saw that carrot, if you will, and that's what got me. God had different plans for me, and I did not end up being a pilot. I thank the Lord every day that I did not become a pilot, because that's not the type of lifestyle that I know that would be best for me. So I'm thankful that He has control. That I've submitted my life to Him, and He guides me and He directs those paths, even when it's not even close to what I would have wanted for myself. Before I even joined the military, actually, those pilot dreams came to an end, and I went off doing something else, and it's been a great experience. So while that's the reason that I joined the Air Force, that's not the reason that I've stuck with it for the last 13 years. We'll continue to do so for another at least 7. We'll see what
happens there. So is that how it works? Is it a contract scheme? Is it kind of you have to commit for so long, or?
There is, yeah. But, different positions and different ranks have different requirements and things like that. But for me personally, for officers, we first sign up for it's a 4-year commitment unless you go through the Air Force Academy, and it's a 5-year commitment. And then you add on commitment length based on basically what the Air Force gives you. So if the Air Force invests money or time into education or training, there are always service commitments that are added on each time you do that. So that's kind of the general trend of it, is every time the Air Force pays something for you to do something, then you give time back with a commitment. So every couple of years, we tack on another couple of years, and we just kind of keep on moving that way.
Wow. That's cool. Is there, so just a little bit more about, did you say Air Force? Is that the right word? Yeah. What does that look like? What's a kind of typical day for you? Just kind of one more little background check almost, and we can dive into that a little bit. But yeah, what does a typical day or week look like for you?
Well, each day is going to look totally different for each person, depending on what their job is. Obviously, it's an extremely large organization. Over 330,000 in just the Air Force alone. And that's one small branch of the U.S. military, that we're one of the smaller branches of the Air Force, of the military. The Army and Navy are both, I believe the Navy's larger, but in any case, there's a whole lot of people, and it's a whole lot of different jobs. Just about any type of job that you could think of we call it the civilian world, but in the outside, in the normal, corporate structure or whatever it is, those jobs exist in the military as well.
Right.
So my job as a maintenance officer, I show up to work and I'll attend some meetings, kind of talk about yesterday's performance, the plan for the day, things like that. We're always keeping an eye on, again, one of my main jobs is keeping the aircraft healthy. So they're able to fly, fixing them when they're broke, and making sure that we're not flying too much, but making sure that we're also meeting the requirements of the aviators, of the pilots, to make sure that they're trained and ready to go to battle if necessary. So every day is a little bit different, and it's been fun.
Yeah, that's cool. Wow,
that's amazing. And I must say as well, I don't know if you want me to brag on you a little bit, but I do know, because your sister told me,
yes,
who is a great friend of the podcast, might I add, that you are a major, which of course Zach and I, and again, for everyone listening, I'm from Canada. He is from England. Like, we do not have a great understanding of the US military. But I do know that is a rather, I would say, impressive role, or one that actually carries a lot of responsibility. And even just in the way that you were talking about, basically you're keeping all the gears running is what I hear as well. And I think it's really interesting, and I think, I don't know, we, at least for me, in my limited understanding of the military, I don't think about these aspects, but how much weight people carry on their shoulders to make sure that the bigger vision, the bigger goal is being served. Which is really interesting and really cool. I also wanted to make sure that, we give you the respect as well. But yeah.
Yeah. Do you, does that come with, like, how do you deal with that? I guess, is pressure the right word, or responsibility?
Expectation as well,
expectation.
Maybe?
Yeah.
Nah, I mean, it's, I don't know. You grow into it as time has gone on. I've been in for longer, and you get more experiences doing things. It's not like day one you just start off being responsible for billions of dollars worth of aircraft and hundreds of people. That takes time to build up to that. You could ask the CEO of any major large corporation, not that I'm comparing myself at all to one of them, but they don't just start there. They start somewhere. So the CEO of a major corporation is responsible for millions and millions of dollars and hundreds or thousands of employees. It's not that they think about that every day. That's just kind of what they've become used to, being responsible for that type of stuff. I think it's kind of similar for me. I don't really wake up in the morning and be like, oh my goodness, like, wow, how did I get here? It's just kind of, this is just life. So no, it's not really, it's pretty normal.
Fair enough.
Yeah. So talk us through then a little bit more, kind of, I guess, the role of your faith, and obviously you mentioned you're a Christian, so everyone knows. But do you have a lot of Christian colleagues? Is that the right word? People that you kind of work with, or is it very much just yourself? Where's your faith in your work? Yeah,
well, I mean, my faith personally it's the center of everything that I do. I try to give glory to God in everything that I do, even if it's not verbal or exactly, extremely outright in all the things that I say or things that I do. So it's a tough balance, because being in a position of authority, you have authority over people's opinions and whether or not you want to or not. So that's something that I've had to battle with a little bit, is just me simply saying something. I know that has impact on people. And whether you're talking about religion or you're talking about politics or regardless of the topic of conversation, if I establish a specific viewpoint on one thing, I have eliminated, potentially half the people that I'm talking to if they have a different viewpoint. So, in the military, we're very open to religion and the ability to practice the religion that you choose. That doesn't just go for the Christian faith; that goes for all faiths. And so, if I am openly Christian, if I'm openly, announcing in a formal environment type of setting, that that's what I believe. Yes, that does allow some people to be more comfortable with me, perhaps, but at the same time, it alienates a different group of people that may not share the same faith. So I have to be cognizant of that. I have to be respectful of that. But that doesn't mean that I have to be completely quiet about my faith either. So I'm thankful that the military in America in general, for the most part, is pretty tolerant of many different faiths and the ability to exercise that freedom of religion.
Right. Have you ever had like any clashes in that respect? So is it very much everyone has to be really respectful and kind of understanding of different people's positions, or is it, do you ever get those kind of clashes, if you like?
Yes, absolutely. I mean, there are days where there are decisions that are made from what we say higher up, but from higher levels of authority. Yeah. Decisions that you don't necessarily agree with. There are decisions about, I mean, it's almost impossible to not bring politics into it, because politics kind of, it's everywhere. It's over everything a lot of times. But so from a political perspective, there are rulings made on what is right and wrong and what is acceptable and what's not. And sometimes those decisions clash with my faith as a Christian. So trying to walk through that can be a challenge on how I support and how I answer to those above me, but at the same time answer to my God in the same way, because He's ultimately the one that I answer to.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Do you have any, I don't want to call maybe necessarily tips or even just practical life advice from walking that out, to how do we submit to our authorities while still, honoring God? Because I think that's I get that question all the time from so many different people, when they find out that I'm a Christian, is how do you do that when you don't agree with something, but still, bringing honor and bringing respect to those that God has placed in your life as an authority. I was wondering if you have any just kind of practical things of how you walk that out. Okay.
No, I was wondering if you had any advice for me.
We could do an exchange. It's like,
no, it's important that we stay grounded in who we are, in us as Christians, and knowing that we will ultimately answer for decisions that we make and the things that we say, the actions that we, ultimately we're submissive to God in what His authority says. And so in the Bible, it's very clear. There are definitely black and white areas, but there are also some gray areas. And so different people may have different interpretations of certain things. And I don't have any specific examples right now off the top of my head, but trying to walk through those and just really, I think as long as you're paying attention to that, and as long as you're being submissive to God, that will really, your heart, the Holy Spirit will work in us and allow us to, it helps us through those situations. It's also important that we are, respectful to our leaders. God has put our leaders in place for a reason, so it's not like, yes, there is a battle between good and evil, but God is ultimately in control of everything. So He's put even the leaders that we feel like are going away from freedom of religion or the ability for us to do things, or laws are being put in place that, we feel like is counter to what God would want. We still need to understand, we still need to remember that God is in ultimate control. And that He put those leaders in place for a reason. So just because there are specific things maybe that we don't agree with doesn't mean that we can't act out our faith. That we can't be submissive to God and be, you get what I'm saying?
No, 100%. That's great.
Yeah. I think it's important to just remember, like, God's put you in that situation and in that place. So I think, like you was just saying, like, just as long as, I guess, ultimately you're being submissive, but also just understanding, like, where you do have influence, then that's your role. And then, otherwise it's very much just a conversation with God and kind of making sure that He's involved in the process of what's going on in your mind. But that's brilliant, mate. So a little bit more on kind of why people join, I guess, the military. It's very much the thing that I've related to, which you're talking to I call myself a newbie with this, someone who doesn't know a lot. It's very much like you're fighting for freedom for your country, patriotic, like I want my country to be the best, those kind of thoughts and feelings. Is that very much what it's like, really? Like, obviously not for yourself, but from what you see people joining and things like that.
And again, that's not why I joined, but it has absolutely grown into that. I've stuck with it for 13 years now because yes, it has grown to that. There are a lot of people that join for those reasons. There are absolutely patriots in the military. Not everybody serves for reasons of, I'm willing to, do whatever it takes, or they feel that call to the nation as a whole. But there are a lot of people that are like that. So absolutely.
Yeah. So is it very much kind of, because when I think, like, I feel like your or someone's passion for their country can very much collide with kind of, I guess, I don't know why I have this straight away. I have this inkling of like their sense of like right and wrong, and it's kind of like it blurs your vision a little bit on what your feelings are, and I guess what's right and wrong in things. Do you see that at all, or is it very much like you fight for your country, but it's in a good and proper way, and it's like, I don't know if I'm kind of wording this the best way, but I don't know. Do you see that kind of unhealthy obsession, I guess? Is that maybe the right phrase?
Yeah, I don't know about obsession. I know, one of the things that not everybody has the same agenda necessarily, the same agreement of what right and wrong is.
Yeah.
But what one thing we all do have is the ability, we want the ability to choose right and wrong. We don't want somebody else to necessarily be the authoritarian over us that says you have to do this, you have to do that. So for me, that's part of what freedom means, is the ability to choose for ourselves, or the ability to submit to whatever it is that you choose, versus having, say, a government say, this is the right way to do it. You must do it this way. Everybody will have this. Everybody will have that. Those are when you don't have that freedom to choose, when you don't have the liberty to decide for yourselves, that becomes uncomfortable for a lot of people. So regardless of whether or not what side of right or wrong you are on a particular topic, the thing that I think people hold on to is that they have the freedom to choose, at least.
Right.
Yeah.
That is a fantastic perspective on freedom, actually. That is it seems so simple, you know what I mean? Like, but I don't think I've actually ever thought about it so plainly. And I'm curious too, because I know, obviously, as we talked about, like, in the military, right, you fight for freedom for your country, or I know a lot of, different countries' military go into other countries to liberate them, to bring freedom, to other countries as well. And I also am acutely aware that our sense of freedom in the West, in Western societies, is also a very specific thing. We are, in a lot of ways, the way that our governments are set up, economic systems, we do have a lot more freedom, if you will, than other countries in different parts of the world. And so I was just wondering as well, as Zach and I were preparing for this, kind of mulling over some freedom questions that we would have for you. Something that really I'm very curious about is, how is freedom perceived maybe in different parts of the world that you've noticed, or how similar or different it is to maybe our Western perspective of freedom. Just to have a kind of, I guess, fuller picture. Yeah.
So we as humans, I think deep down, we as humans all have a desire to be free. I think God made us that way. God designed us to have an open, personal relationship with our Creator. It was that way from the beginning. It was that way with Adam and Eve. And until sin entered the world, and until there was that barrier between us and our Creator, we had that perfect relationship. We had that ultimate freedom. So our freedom is now, because sin entered the world, and because we have to have something that will atone for that sin. And that atonement came through Christ. We now, through Christ, have freedom. But whether you believe in Christianity or not, everybody has this desire for freedom, to not be a slave to bondage or a slave to doing things that you don't want to do. You know, in Paul in Romans calls that, a slave to sin. And so for everybody, regardless of what culture you come from, I think that is true across the board for us as humans. I haven't spent a whole lot of time in a lot of different other countries, but I have visited for a couple of weeks here and there in different places. And I spent the last year in Japan. But the difference of freedom is culturally, I think, is very different. But from a human perspective, I don't know that it necessarily is too much different. We as Americans, when we think of freedom, we think of the liberties that we enjoy in America. In Britain, you have a different way of thinking about certain things. And that's very cultural based. Mm-hmm. So there are a lot of differences culturally between what makes freedom versus not. When you look at the difference between like a North Korea or a South Korea, they're very, very different in the way that those countries operate, in the way that those people think about freedom. But I think a lot of that stuff, we confuse too often the difference between just cultural norms versus what freedom is. We throw that catchphrase around freedom quite a bit, especially here in America. Independence Day was July 4th, 4 days ago. So this is one of those things that, it's on everybody's mind right now. And we talk about, freedom isn't free. And we talk about the sacrifices that people make to maintain those freedoms. But really, I think for a lot of people, that's the way of life. That's kind of, especially for Americans, we've grown accustomed to that. Now, freedom for me means something completely different than freedom in the late 1700s when America separated from Britain. For those people back in the late 1700s, freedom meant something completely different, perhaps, than it means for me, because we haven't gone through this struggle. So freedom for somebody that has been oppressed, for somebody that has been under control of something that they didn't want to be under the control of, and then they now no longer have that means something completely different than somebody else that has just inherited or enjoyed that sense of freedom for their whole life. So yeah, I think it's definitely something, we talk about fighting for freedom, but for us right now, it's not really a fight for freedom. It's more of a desire to maintain the freedoms that we have.
Right.
And that is different depending on what country you're in and depending on where they are in the spectrum of how free they are versus, another that perhaps isn't.
Is it definitely a case of maintaining, would you say, for everyone kind of that you work with though? Like, do you have people who are chasing quite a lot as well, or almost like seeking that freedom? I found, like, obviously this is not military context, but just in terms of today's society, people are chasing that a lot. And obviously, like you mentioned it, depending on their situation, and I guess, then it's going to change. But do you have people chasing it, kind of who you work with? And do you see that much in around your work environment, especially? Or is it very much kind of we're maintaining? Or
I don't know. I think we are all too comfortable. I think we are all too comfortable with the freedom that we do have. And people make a big deal about, we're going to lose our freedom of fill in the blank. Oh, I'm being censored on social media. We're losing our freedom of speech. I got made fun of because somebody found out I was a Christian. I'm losing my freedom of religion or freedom of expression or whatever it is. And I think that we have it is not that bad. It is not that bad at all, and I think that is just for a lot of people, it's ignorance, not necessarily any fault of their own. Maybe it feels like they're losing that because maybe they are being suppressed a little bit. Maybe they are being told to be quiet. Maybe they're going through a little bit of a hardship, but that doesn't necessarily mean that they're losing their freedom. It's just, maybe they don't quite have the ease that they did before. Maybe it wasn't quite as easy as they had before, but it's not like they're going to be put in jail because they put something on social media.
Right.
That is losing your freedom. But I don't think we're at that point. And so for a lot of people, I think they just, we're so comfortable with the freedom that we do have. It becomes this, like, the sky is falling when there's any type of struggle with it.
Wow.
So I don't know that. For me, I see a lot of people that make a big deal about something that I don't necessarily lose much sleep about personally. There will, again, when we get into a political spectrum, there will be swings every couple of years, depending on who's in power. There will be swings, but there have been swings for the past 275 years. You know, there have been swings and shifts but we haven't lost our freedom. The Constitution is still the same today that it was back in 1776. That hasn't changed. And so the interpretations of that have changed a little bit. That document is still the same. That is still our foundation. So when people talk about, we're losing our freedoms, it's, to me, I think, it's just, we're a little bit sensitive to that, perhaps.
That's amazing. You had some extraordinarily great points in there.
That was so good.
Yeah. Like, I almost started to take notes. I actually have been taking notes because you got some great one-liners in there. But one of the things, and I think for me, just even going to take this back and think about, but is it ignorance or inconvenience that I am confusing with a lack of freedom? Mm-hmm. I think that is an amazing question. Oh my goodness. Like,
wow. Aaron.
Yeah, I know. Okay, then. There's something else as well. Oh yes. Cause another thing that we wanted to ask was, do you think maybe we're idolizing freedom? But as you were talking, I was thinking maybe it's not even idolizing freedom, but are we kind of settling for a very superficial freedom or getting caught up in a superficial freedom when, like you said, like, there will be cultural norms wherever you go, but real freedom is a human heart, our spirit freedom, like you were talking about, like through Jesus. And so I'm even thinking about, rewording some of the prepared questions just from that, because I do wonder, like, maybe it's not necessarily an idolizing problem. Maybe in some people or in some situations it is, but maybe it's we have such a superficial understanding of what freedom is. Then maybe that's an issue that we need to address. Just not like necessarily here, but just in our lives, in our circles of influence. But yeah, have you any thoughts on that or?
No, I think again, it's just staying grounded in where what is our base, and so for us as Christians, that's staying grounded in God's word and staying grounded in our faith in Christ. Until that's like, you can read through the New Testament, you can see some persecution. You can see some people that lost their freedoms, but they never lost their freedom in Christ.
Amen.
Freedom is we need to be careful to not turn it into a buzz, because there are a lot of people that don't enjoy even a fraction of the lowest amount of freedom that we could ever imagine. But yeah, I think as long as if we're staying grounded in our faith and grounded in Christ and are putting things against his word, that's what matters.
Yeah. So good. Is freedom a buzzword, especially like here in the UK? Like people have dubbed, so on July 19th, which is really shortly, a lot of the final like COVID lockdown rules will be lifted, and people have literally dubbed that Freedom Day.
Freedom Day.
That is literally what people are calling it. I know. I'm like, oh my word. Like, yeah, but we can still, do so much. Wow. This is the exact content that we love, Aaron. So thank you.
Yeah, seriously. Thank you so much. Just kind of moving things on a little bit. Obviously you said, did you say you got another 7 years with I don't know if it's a contract you're under exactly. Yeah.
Well, it's sort of, I mean, I will probably do at least 7 years. 20 years is that's the magic number when you're allowed to retire. in the U.S. military. So
okay.
Yeah.
This is a slightly rabbit hole from kind of freedom and what we're talking about, but what are your kind of, I don't know, do you have certain goals you have to get done by the end of the 7 years, or are there things that you specifically need to be working on, projects and things like that? What does the next 7 years kind of look like for you in your position? Do you even know the answer to that? Or
No, very generally. I know very generally what's probably next for me. But not necessarily. Are you asking specifically for me and my?
You don't have to give specific details. Obviously, I don't know if you're allowed to do things like that as such, but I'm just wondering if you had any direction, I guess, and kind of knowledge as to like just where you're heading in the next 7 years, or yeah.
I do a little bit, as far as, but again, they're very generalized. I have an idea for where others that have come before me, where they would be at their point, at this point in their careers, and then kind of where the normal roadmap goes. Okay. But it's, everybody is a little bit different. And as far as the specifics about where we will be, what location we'll be in, we move every 2 or 3 years. So as far as where we will be, I have no idea.
Yeah. Okay. What about then?
It's all kind of,
what about then taking it back just a little bit, kind of, you said obviously your initial reasons for joining the military, very different to kind of how you feel now. Do you want to just talk us through kind of that? I want to call it a transformation period, if that's a good way to phrase it. Yeah. How did that look like for you? Was it kind of very much God talking to you about that, or yeah, I'll let you answer.
Part of my testimony was right at the very beginning, right when I, because again, all my dreams focused on being a pilot in the Air Force. That's what I wanted to do, because that's what I needed to do to get to my ultimate career goals. But I lost that ability to be a pilot. I was medically disqualified a week before I was even commissioned, which means when you get your commission is for officers, that's the point. You either enlisted or you're commissioned. So that's the point of like where you would, you say the oath and you're officially in, right? Wow. So it was a week prior to that, but I had already been given some scholarships and some other things. So I already owed 4 years of service to the Air Force, regardless of what job I was going to have. So at that point, I didn't have a choice. At that point, I was going to do my 4 years. And if I hated it, then I would get out. But I didn't hate it. I actually really kind of enjoyed it. And I realized at that point, and again, like I mentioned, this is part of my testimony, because at that point in my life, I had put so much into what I wanted to do. And I had I would listen to God's voice when it was convenient. And I would listen to what I thought was best for me when it was convenient. But if it didn't align with my personal goals, then it was kind of like, okay, whatever. Right. But at that point, that was kind of I guess I'm stuck for the next 4 years, and okay, here we go. And it was that I realized, like, God is in control. He's going to put me where he wants me. So I have a choice. I can either wake up in the morning with a positive attitude and try to live for him, or I can try to fight him and then resist it and live life miserably. So, I went to a location that I never thought I would in North Dakota. I barely knew that was a state at the time.
There's not much there. I can attest to that.
Looking back on it, I met my wife there, and this is like, when I look back on it and I can see God's work, his hand at work throughout my entire career, which was very short at that point, but it's so easy to see his hand at work in my life. And so that just reassures, like, yes, there are uncertainties. Yes, there are things that I don't know. I don't know where we're going to be next year. All I know is, again, we're in the middle of a move right now. We're just moving back to New Jersey. We're only going to be there for a year. I know that. I don't know where we're going to go next, but that's okay, because even though I've gone through, like 6 or 7 moves now, I'm losing track.
Wow.
It'll be It'll be five moves in the last 6 years. We move a lot.
Wow.
And this is like uprooting our lives every day. Every time we move, it's getting new friends, finding a new church, finding new neighbors, meeting new people, being friendly with others, all these things that are so difficult. And for my two boys, it's trying to find new friends. They're 5 and 7. They don't really understand necessarily. This is all they know, is that every couple of years I have to make new friends. I have to say bye to all my friends, and we have to start over. We go to an unfamiliar place. Sometimes in that place, like it was last year in Japan, it's very difficult to meet people and very difficult to talk because there's a language barrier there. It's not easy all the time, but I do know that it is where God wants us. In looking back over the last, again, 13 years, I can see countless times of where we've been somewhere, not because it was my choice, but because that's where God wanted to use us. And I think as long as we stay faithful to Him, that He will use us where He wants us, and that's ultimately for our benefit.
Yeah, so good. And I think that is so key as well. Because as you said, your whole part of your testimony is, you gave up what you wanted to find out what God had for you was better. Mm-hmm. And I think in the context of freedom, a lot of times, we reduce freedom to just doing whatever I want to do.
That's right.
And how beautiful that is. Like, hey, like actually sometimes true freedom is not doing what you want to do, but it's submitting to God and then realizing that it's better.
Right.
So that's beautiful. Love that. Something else though, that I just can't stop thinking about is the commitments that you have to make, to the military and all of this. And like, as you were saying, I still fully don't understand the process, but like you owe them and you commit chunks of time. And that is something that I think our generation is so afraid of, is commitment, because it's like, if you commit, then you lose your freedom, then you don't have options anymore. And we know, and I think we, can understand from a logical perspective, like, okay, no, commitment is good. But anything to kind of speak into that, or, specifically to maybe younger people that are listening to this, and a culture that's very much like, no, like you don't have to commit, keep your options open, just do whatever you want to do. Don't let anyone tie you down. I don't know, can you kind of speak to us about the beauty of commitment, or the benefits that you've seen? And how it maybe hasn't fully limited your freedom. Like we always, have this perception that it will.
There will. Well, first off, who are we committed to? Are we committed to God, or are we committed to ourselves? Because if I'm committed to myself, then no, I don't want any commitments, because I want the ability to change, because my personal desires change, because my circumstances change, because the friends that I meet, the places that I go, all of those things change our perspective about things. But the one thing that never changes is our God. And so if our commitment is to our God and living our life to serve Him, it doesn't matter where we go, because like we can serve Him regardless of where we go or what we're doing, regardless of what job we're in. You may be in a job that you personally hate, but if you can find that it brings glory, like that can be satisfying. So there will be opportunities to change careers. There will be opportunities to change locations where you live, what position you're in, what status you're in, whatever it is. But the one thing that remains constant is our God. And so if our commitment is to Him, to me, that in and of itself is freeing. And I don't really need to worry about the specifics of what I do, what I happen to do when the alarm clock goes off in the morning, what job I'm going to go to, or what street I live on. None of that stuff matters much anymore. That all kind of takes a back seat, because wherever it is, whatever we're doing, if I'm there to serve God in what I'm doing, then I believe that I will be happy, because that's where true joy is.
There you have it.
Wow.
Couldn't have said it better myself. That's amazing.
Do you think, how do you then just, I mean, this is maybe a few different answers could be for this, but obviously because there are situations where you're not in the right place and you're not doing the right thing. Kind of, what are your, what's the word? Kind of like your little, I guess, sensors or little cues or little signs to say that you're not kind of actually in the right place and stuff. Because, yeah, sometimes you're not, so what are your thoughts on that? You know, just kind of following where God wants you and things.
I don't know. I think, you're right. There are a lot of people that, they're in a job that isn't necessarily, maybe it's not glorifying to God. I know, I have friends personally that have left jobs because they didn't feel like they could adequately serve God in a way or bring joy to God in the way that they wanted to. Maybe they were suppressed from talking about certain things. Maybe there were certain beliefs or values that the company that they were with had, and they couldn't work for an organization that believed those values. And I respect that, and that's okay. And again, that's going to be different for each person. I don't think there is one right answer for necessarily how to approach that other than through prayer. If you are prayerfully asking God to lead you and to guide you to go, I believe that he will bring clarity to whatever your situation is personally. Maybe it means having a better attitude at the place you're at. Maybe it means looking for other opportunities. But regardless, I think the solution there is prayer.
There you go. And it kind of goes back to what you were talking about a bit earlier as well, right? Like some things are very black and white, but there is a lot of gray and a lot of different areas. So yeah, just having that discernment and just seeking God, like you said, so good.
Yeah. Brilliant.
Yeah. I think it's almost time for us to start wrapping up. We've been at this for a while. It's flown by.
Aaron, you dropped some gold dust there, mate. Gold dust. Honestly, that was brilliant.
Yeah,
that was great. Thank you so much, mate, for joining us. Really appreciate that.
Yeah.
No, it's been fun chatting with you guys.
And I would also just like to mention to the YouTube that we've decided that I've won the biggest numpty of the team award with these fat giant headphones.
Bonus points to anybody that can provide the definition for numpty.
Yes. That is a very fair point.
That is so good. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Let me know when you know.
Exactly. He doesn't even know himself. But yeah, for real, Aaron, this has been amazing. And for everyone that's listening, wherever you are in the world, because we know that we get people from literally all over that listen to this with different backgrounds, different experiences. Hopefully this has been very eye-opening for you. Like I know it has been for Zach and I. Just to hear this different perspective than the one that we're used to, or even our cultural perspective. It's been so good and so refreshing. So yeah, thank you guys for listening. And again, 100 times thank you, Aaron, in the middle of your move for taking this time and taking this time away from your family as well. I don't know how you managed to do that, but we are so thankful and thankful to them for letting us have you for this time as well.
Thank you so much. And just real quick as well, we have an Instagram now. I know we mentioned it last episode, but if you didn't know, check us out, give us a follow. We're going to be posting on there pretty regularly. So if you'd love to get in touch with us, then please get us through that platform.
Absolutely. It's at the Anchor of the Week.
Yes.
I'm sure you could have guessed that, but just to reiterate. Amazing.
Brilliant.
All right. Thank you so much, Aaron, for joining us on this topic of freedom. And thank you for everyone for listening. And we will continue the conversation next week.
Thanks for joining us for today's episode of the Anchor of the Week.
Make sure you follow us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and YouTube so you never miss an episode.
See you next time.